Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. Get ready for heart-touching stories. Don't forget to subscribe and let's begin.
The notification arrived at 2:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I had been awake for 31 hours by then, sitting in the vinyl chair beside my wife's hospital bed, watching the small rise and fall of her chest like it was the only thing keeping the world turning. Which, in a way, it was. Elena had been moved to palliative care 4 days earlier. The doctors had stopped using words like treatment and prognosis and had started using words like comfort and peace, words that sounded gentle but landed like stones. My phone buzzed against my thigh. A message from my mother: "We've decided it's best we wait. We'll come when she's truly gone. It'll be easier for everyone that way." I read it 3 times. Then I set my phone face down on the windowsill and looked at my wife, her dark hair fanned across the pillow, the oxygen tube running beneath her nose, the monitors casting a faint green glow across her cheekbones, and I made a decision not to cry. Not then. There would be time for crying later. I was beginning to understand, going to be an almost infinite amount of time for crying later. Alina and I had been together for 11 years, married for 7. We had met at a graduate school orientation, where she had laughed at something the department chair said that no one else had caught, and I had turned to find the source of that laugh and had never really looked away again. She was a landscape architect who believed that every outdoor space was secretly a conversation between whoever built it and whoever walked through it. She could look at a courtyard and tell you what the designer had been feeling. She cried at airport reunions she witnessed as a stranger. She made the best roasted chicken I have ever eaten in my life, and she knew every word to an embarrassing number of Dolly Parton songs, and she was 39 years old when the diagnosis came: glioblastoma. The word sounds almost beautiful until you learn what it means: 14 months from diagnosis to the palliative ward. We had done everything the doctors suggested and several things they hadn't, and Alina had faced all of it with a kind of clear-eyed pragmatism that I could only describe as the bravest thing I have ever personally witnessed. She made arrangements. She wrote letters to people she loved. She filmed herself reading a bedtime story so that her niece, who was 4, would have something to watch when she was older. That last one was her idea. She had sat up in bed one afternoon, 3 weeks before she was moved to palliative care, and said, "I want to make something for people, not just a message, something they can keep." I had set up my phone on a stack of books at the foot of the bed. She had done her hair. She was wearing the blue cardigan she loved, the one with the small moth hole near the left cuff that she had always meant to repair. She looked in that moment more like herself than she had in months. She recorded 11 videos in 4 days. My relationship with my parents had always been what a therapist might diplomatically call complicated. They were not cruel people. They were not even, I think, intentionally cold. But they moved through the world with a particular kind of emotional efficiency. Feelings were acknowledged and then filed away. Grief was a private matter, and illness, especially terminal illness, made them deeply, visibly uncomfortable. When Alina was first diagnosed, my mother had responded by sending a fruit basket and a card that said "thinking of you" in embossed silver letters. My father had called once, asked 2 questions about the treatment plan, and then spent most of the call talking about a problem he was having with his roof contractor. I had told myself it was how they were raised. I had told myself they showed love differently. I had told Alina, who had squeezed my hand and said, "You don't have to defend them to me, you know." But the message at 2:47 in the morning was different. It was one thing to be distant. It was another to look at a woman who had been part of our family for 11 years, who had sat at their table at Christmas, who had driven my mother to her colonoscopy when I couldn't get away from work, and decide she wasn't worth the inconvenience of a visit while she was still alive to receive it. Will come when she's truly gone. I thought about waking Alina to tell her. I immediately decided against it, then spent an hour hatting myself for having considered it at all. Alina died on a Tuesday morning just after sunrise. The light came through the window in that particular slanted way it does in early autumn, and the nurse had stepped out to get more gauze, and it was just the two of us, the way she had wanted it. I was holding her hand. I was telling her about the garden we had always talked about planting when we had more time, walking her through it like she could actually see it. The climbing roses along the south wall, the lavender border, the bench beneath the apple tree where we would have sat in the evenings. I don't know if she heard me. I choose to believe she did. My parents arrived 2 days later as promised. My mother hugged me for a long time in the doorway and cried, which surprised me. My father shook my hand and then after a moment also hugged me, which surprised me more. They had brought food. They moved carefully through Alina's house, our house, like they were afraid of disturbing something. We sat at the kitchen table and my mother started talking about arrangements, logistics, the practical architecture of grief, and I let her because it was something to do with our hands. And then my father said, "I understand she made some videos." I looked at him. "Your brother mentioned it," he said. "He heard it from someone." I had shown the videos to Lena's sister and to her 3 closest friends, swearing them to a kind of gentle secrecy until I had figured out what to do with them. Alina had made them for specific people. She had been precise about this. "That one is for Marco, that one is for you. that one, and she had smiled when she said it, is for your parents. I had not watched it yet. I realized, afraid to. That evening after dinner, I went into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened the file on my laptop. She was wearing the blue cardigan. The moth hole was visible near her left cuff. She looked directly at the camera with those dark, steady eyes, and she smiled first, not a sad smile, not a performance of bravery, just her actual smile, the one that still, even now, rearranged something in my chest. "Hello," she said. "If you're watching this, I want you to know I thought about whether to make it, and I decided yes. Not because I'm angry. I'm going to say that clearly right at the start so we can get it out of the way. I'm not angry." She paused. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I know you're uncomfortable with this, with all of it, the illness, the dying. What comes after? I know it's hard for people who love someone to watch them go through what I've been going through, and I know sometimes the way people handle hard things is to wait until the hardest part is over. I understand that, I really do." Another pause. She looked down at her hands briefly, then back up. "But I want you to know something. The time when I was still here, the hard time, the uncomfortable time, the time that was difficult to witness, that was the time that mattered. That was when I was still a person who could feel you in the room. That was when a hand on my arm meant something. That was when your presence would have told me I was worth showing up for, not in spite of the difficulty, but because of it." I had to stop the video. I sat in the dark for a while, then I pressed play again. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. Guilt is useless to me now, and honestly, it's useless to you too. I'm telling you because I think somewhere inside you, you already know it. I think that's why you made the decision you did, because seeing me would have made it real in a way you weren't ready for. And that's human. That is such a human thing." She smiled again, softer this time. "What I want, the thing I actually want, which I have the strange freedom of saying clearly because I'm recording this instead of saying it to your faces, is for you to be there for him. He is going to need people in the room. He's going to need exactly what I needed and didn't get. And he's the kind of person who will tell you he's fine long after he stopped being fine, so you'll have to decide to show up without being asked." She leaned forward slightly, closer to the camera. "That's the thing I want to leave you with. Showing up for the hard part is the whole point. It's easy to come to the party. It's easy to come when the worst is over and everyone is sharing memories and there's food on the table. The real thing, the thing that actually costs something, is coming when it's ugly and uncertain and there's nothing useful you can do except be there. That's the thing that tells someone they matter, and I needed to know I mattered. And now he will need to know it too." A long pause. She looked at the camera for a moment without speaking. "I think you're good people who got scared. I've spent a lot of time being angry about it, and then I spent a lot of time just being sad about it, and I think where I've landed is, I forgive you. Not because what happened didn't hurt, but because holding on to it takes energy I don't have, and because I'd rather use what I've got left on something better." She sat back. "Take care of him, that's all, just take care of him." And then she reached forward and stopped the recording. I called my parents into the living room and sat them on the couch and opened my laptop on the coffee table and pressed play. Then I went and stood in the kitchen doorway where I could hear without watching their faces. My mother started crying about 2 minutes in. Not the polished, composed crying she had done in the doorway, real crying, the kind that catches in the throat and comes out ragged. My father didn't make a sound, but when I finally looked, he had his hand over his mouth. When it ended, nobody spoke for a long time. Then my father said, in a voice I had never heard from him before, stripped of its usual careful management, raw as an open window, "She deserved better than what we gave her." It wasn't a question. It wasn't looking for absolution. It was just a man sitting with a true thing. My mother crossed the room and put her arms around me and held on, and this time I let myself cry too. And for a while the three of us just existed inside the grief together, which was, I thought, the first honest thing we had done as a family in longer than I could remember. It has been 8 months now. My parents call more than they used to. My father came and helped me build the raised garden beds Alina had wanted along the south wall. My mother planted lavender along the border, which made me have to go inside for a few minutes, and she didn't ask why, which was its own kind of growth. I watch Alina's videos sometimes on the days when the house is too quiet. She left 11 of them, and each one is so precisely, unmistakably her humor, her steadiness, her way of saying difficult things as though they were simply true and therefore nothing to be afraid of. She didn't change my parents in the way that sounds like a miracle. She didn't erase 11 years of distance with 4 minutes of footage. What she did was something more modest and more lasting. She told them the truth in a voice they couldn't argue with or deflect, and she told it without cruelty, and she gave them something specific to do about it. She handed them a task: show up for him. And slowly, imperfectly, in the way that real people change, they are trying. There is a bench under the apple tree now. I sit there in the evening sometimes when the light is doing that autumn thing again. I think about the conversation between the person who made a garden and the person who walks through it, which was the thing Alina believed about outdoor spaces. And I think about what she made in those last weeks, not just the garden plan, but the videos, the letters, the careful architecture of what she wanted to leave behind. She built something for people to walk through after she was gone. She designed it knowing she wouldn't be there to see how they moved through it. That, I think, is the most Alina thing she ever did. And every day I try to be someone worthy of having been loved that clearly. For anyone sitting in a vinyl chair beside a hospital bed right now, I see you. Show up. Stay. The hard part is the part that counts.